Welcome back to What's My Deal? I have some time to kill before I meet up with the first reader of one of my manuscripts, who's going to decide which of my poems, if any, deserve to exist in print. So I figured I'd use this time to knock one out, I'm sorry. Knock an episode out. I'm sorry, yeah, I've been recharging my Shukra Datu the past few weeks, and it's coming out Freudian. Today, this episode is not about my celibacy stint or my SR regimen. It is just a quick installment I wanted to release to address an offhanded comment that I made in the last episode that invited a bit of scrutiny from people and the universe at large by way of vibrations. So yeah, I'll play that clip here. I am a Sigma, but contrary to what people like my friend Becca have claimed, I am not leaning on Stoicism for the designation. I'm a true Sigma, and true Sigmas don't care if people consider them Sigmas or not, and I don't care. But yeah, for the record, I am a Sigma. First, let me just say I don't really like calling myself a Sigma. I feel like it muddies the waters a bit in terms of branding, you know? I mean, don't get me wrong, I liked Ryan Gosling in Drive. I'm just not trying to model my image after Ryan Gosling in Drive. And yeah, I like sticking a toothpick in my mouth from time to time, but that's more of an oral fixation thing than it is posturing. And yeah, to me, calling myself a Sigma feels like posturing. So yeah, if this installment feels a little rushed, that's why. I'm trying to get it over with. If you need a refresher, Sigma male is a common term used in internet-based folk taxonomy. It's a derivative reaction to the alpha male model, which is itself a misapplication of mid-20th century animal behavior studies. And it's used to describe an independent lone wolf character who operates outside of traditional social hierarchies. So yeah, Sigma is kind of like a modern mythic archetype that a lot of young men aspire to. And unlike alphas who seek leadership, Sigmas tend to be, nonconformist, introverted, and in many cases badass. And a lot of you are probably thinking, give me a break, Alex. You're not an introvert. You walk around in public with a selfie stick. And to that, I would respond, you're probably conflating introversion with shyness. Shyness stems from fear of social disapproval. I don't appear to have much of that. And introversion is more about environmental preference. And I do prefer to be alone or in the company of one or two people max. I find it's easier to hear myself think that way. 3 starts to feel like work. And then if I have to engage with more than that, I prefer to be on stage or alarmingly drunk. Yeah, introversion is definitely one of the reasons my relationship with alcohol has such a checkered past. I've been known to look for connection in loud, low-signal environments and then alleviate my discomfort and or irritation with booze. Yeah, numbing my inner complexity just makes my surroundings feel more legible and palatable. Because, my inner world tends to be far more engaging than anything out here. If anything, the selfie stick keeps people at a distance while I remain oriented inward, observing myself as something of a cultural artifact. Right, okay, so yeah, where was I? Right, okay, yeah, so coming out as a Sigma in the last installment prompted a bit of pushback. The first vibrational check came as a comment on the podcast clip. And it said, quote, classic beta and denial thinking making jokes about being Sigma will throw everyone off the scent and delay the inevitable realization. And I'll be honest, this threw me for a second. Just a little second, though, enough time to ask myself, am I unwittingly being a beta? But then my inner wolf stepped in and answered with a definitive no. Yeah, and then the second vibe check happened last Monday. Somebody held a door for me, which was fine. I have nothing against courtesy. The problem was that I was at the other end of the parking lot, so I had to jog to the open door so as not to leave the guy waiting. And as I started jogging, I realized that this person, whether it was intentional or not, was leveraging my sense of propriety to dictate my physical pace. I wasn't embarrassed or anything. I don't care if onlookers misread a situation and assume I'm a beta. It's one of the things that makes me a Sigma, actually, not caring how normies classify me. I was just more disappointed in myself for not marching to the beat of my own drum in that moment, and I recognized it for what it was. The universe challenging my status, which it did again yesterday when I ran into an acquaintance outside of the grocery store. I don't have time for games today. Okay, I guess the meeting got pushed. But anyway, yeah, no. So I went on a grocery run, and when I was heading back to my car, I saw Griffin, who is a paragon of the Metro Atlanta Sigmas, and he was leaning against his car eating tuna from a can, and if he was surprised to see me, he didn't let on, because that's not something he does. He just nodded at me and asked, "What are you rewarding yourself for?" And at first I didn't understand the question, but then I tracked his eye line to my grocery bag, and you could see the Kit Kat bar I had just bought through the polyethylene. So I guess he was just judging me for buying myself a little treat. He was like, "I've been meaning to reach out," and I was like, "What for?" And he was like, "You can't be calling yourself a Sigma." Apparently he saw the podcast clip where I offhandedly mentioned that I'm a Sigma, and he didn't approve. And I was like, "I don't like saying it out loud any more than you like hearing it, but that's what I am. I am a Sigma." And he was like, "I could give you any number of reasons you aren't." And I asked him to list some, and he said he would be glad to, but that if we were going to continue the conversation, it would have to be in his truck to control frame and reduce variables. And I was curious enough to hear what he had to say, so I agreed. But when I opened the door, I saw that there was nowhere for me to sit, and then he told me I had to get into the bed of the truck, and I did. And he opened the sliding rear window so that I could hear him make his case for why I'm not a Sigma. And he was like, "First and foremost, you talk too much. You know, your whole online persona is rooted in oversharing, and Sigmas don't announce, they execute. They let their actions do the talking for them." And I was like, "You're right for the most part, but you're ignoring a key distinction in my case, namely that I am a modern day bard." And he was like, "What's a bard again?" And, I could have exploited his ignorance there, used it to my rhetorical advantage, but honestly, I found his vulnerability in the moment kind of endearing. So I just let it slide, and I told him. A bard is a poet and or storyteller who composes and, more germane to this discussion, recites epic poetry, heroic tales, genealogies, satires, etc. And I just happen to be the hero in my own verse, at least until I outgrow the infantile grandiosity of my lyric era and move into a more mythic register. So yeah, my actions can't really do the talking unless I'm actively talking, since talking is the action. And I'm not really announcing my next move so much as mapping my arc in real time. It's plot development as I speak my greatness into existence. He was like, "You're not speaking any greatness into existence, you're just humiliating yourself." And I'm like, "Of course I am. That's like a central plot point. And more importantly, humiliating myself in the eyes of others is probably the most Sigma thing about me, because I don't let it govern my behavior. And that signals indifference to social approval and status preservation, which in turn signals autonomy." I then clarified that I don't feel humiliated by my process or my output, probably because all the groveling and self-abasement I did after the breakup of 23 fried my humiliation receptors or something. But that even if I did feel humiliated, that posting it anyway would make me something of a martyr. I cited Francis Ponge's prose poem, Soap, where the soap avenges itself for the humiliation of having to dissolve in water by making the water clean. And I said, essentially, I'm doing the same thing. I'm disinfecting internet culture by subsuming myself in it. And I know that went over his head because it almost went over mine as I was saying it. But yeah, he changed tack and focused on my appearance and said something to the effect of, "I'm sorry, I just can't accept that somebody with a seasoned inner wolf would choose to wear a turtleneck in May." And then I countered by saying, "I find it hard to believe that anyone with a seasoned inner wolf would waste his energy on fashion analysis." And that was checkmate. Yeah, he got real quiet after that. And, seeing as I'm not petty, I let him save a bit of face, and I acknowledged that it's a very common mistake that amateurs make, assuming Sigmas are limited to an inner wolf, and that whatever I have is probably closer to a coyote. And it's natural that a coyote would invite misunderstanding, seeing as the animal does it on a mythic scale in indigenous traditions across North America. Yeah, the coyote is associated with the trickster archetype, liminal, unstable, oscillating between wisdom and folly, constantly disrupting the boundary between order and chaos, stuff like that. And the coyote is actually a more solitary animal than the wolf, and ironically more prolific and vocal. And yes, its voice can be pretty grating to people with more mainstream sensibilities. So yeah, as a spirit animal, it's pretty airtight, seeing as I'm a widely misunderstood orator who spends a lot of his time alone talking to a camera and disseminating obnoxious content to a predominantly North American audience that didn't invite me on their feeds. So I think that's all I needed to cover in this installment. I hope that answered any questions you may have had, and hopefully the universe gets off its high horse and it gives me a fucking break. I don't know. All right, until next time.
This show is called